You're watching and listening to the Indy Drills podcast. It's a DB podcast where we talk about all things coverage, secondary, DBs, cornerbacks, nickels, safeties, all that good stuff, because somebody's got to do it. It's not all about the quarterbacks and the wide receivers out there. So that's what I'm here for. We got to slow those guys down. We talk about it here on the Indy Drills podcast, sponsored by my book, 101 DB Tips. This is the best DB resource that you can have in your hands, even if you're not a guy that likes to read. You're going to want to read this if you've got to chase wide receivers around and jump in front of passes for a living, or you coach guys that jump in front of passes and stop offenses for a living through the secondary. It is a tremendous resource. Everything that you need to know to play the position right here in this book, 101 DB Tips. All right. First time here. If you enjoy things, and I think you will, if you play in the secondary or coach the secondary or train the secondary, go ahead and give this a like and a share, and as well subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more great episodes of the Indy Drills podcast just like this. Let's just jump right into it. Current news as it pertains to DBs. Derion Kendrick, cornerback for the Los Angeles Rams, was released this past week. Young man started 12 games for the Rams last year. And they were kind of up and down in the secondary last year, so wasn't really sure what they were going to do moving into 2025. There's talk about them returning Jalen Ramsey to the Rams, and if so, this is one of those moves I guess you make. Kendrick was a 6th-round pick couple of years ago out of Georgia. So not a big salary to unload there. So that wasn't really the issue. And I'm a little surprised by the move, though Kendrick was up and down in coverage. A young player. This was his 2nd year in the league. I believe he'd started 18 games out of his 2 seasons there for the Rams. And again, 12 of them last year. So one of their primary starters in the secondary, but nevertheless, released and now on to a new place for Derion Kendrick. We'll see where he lands. But the biggest news since we last were on the Indy Drills podcast was the Green Bay Packers making a major move in their secondary by releasing Pro Bowl cornerback Jair Alexander. And so for those of you who don't really follow this stuff quite closely, maybe you're a casual fan. I know that's like a cuss word nowadays to call a fan. That's like a spit in his face, an insult. But, you kind of follow, but you're not deep into it. That Jair Alexander is a top corner in this league when he's healthy. But the health part was a big problem for the Green Bay Packers, not known to be an organization that plays around. The Packers are in the playoffs every year. They're fighting. They're one of those teams in the league that's fighting to go to a Super Bowl every year and has a legit chance to do it. By and large, throughout, their most recent history, the last decade plus, they have made good personnel moves, whether that's been through the draft or, through free agency. One of the better teams in terms of making personnel moves. And so you kind of just got to rock with it. The biggest problem, again, though, with Jair Alexander was health. He's just has gone through a whole bunch of injuries. And when you pay a guy the way that they did 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they extended him. He signed a 4-year, $84 million contract, $30 million of that guaranteed. They're going to expect some things. Basically, in the NFL, outside of quarterbacks, when you sign a big contract in the NFL, you kind of become an enemy to the team, right? You're an enemy to the front office and the way that they operate, because you are, taking up all the money, and that doesn't allow us to sign other players and make moves. Maybe that's a harsh way of explaining it, but that's just really how it ends up looking. The moment you get that big contract you've been striving for, you're now an enemy of the team and the things that they need to do going forward to add to the roster, chase Super Bowls and playoffs and things of that nature. And, especially so for cornerbacks, which I'm going to be honest, as of late, as I watched the last couple of drafts and how things have been moving a little bit in free agency, are not as high up on the list as they have been in the years past. Some of that has to do with the rules as they, are right now in the NFL, along with the way teams are choosing to play defense. A lot more teams are moving to quarters coverage, playing a lot more zone, and they want to rely more on a pass rush. The general teams, the ones that kind of 1 year will be in the playoffs and then, a couple of years won't. Middle of the pack, lower half teams. This is how they go about playing football. It hasn't really caught on to the teams that want to be in the upper tier, that this not exactly how you want to play. You want to do a little bit more in your secondary and on defense if you're trying to get to that last game. But whatever, I digress. But a combination of those things has, in the minds of some executives and NFL teams, made cornerbacks not as hot a commodity as they've been before. You still got to have guys that can cover out in the secondary. So, people are going to find that out the hard way. But because of that, it's very difficult to keep a guy like Jair Alexander on a big contract, or even be in a position where you might have to re-up this guy. When you take a look at things, he's been in the league for 7 years. He's only played 2 full seasons because of injuries. And the biggest part of that is back-to-back seasons, he's only played in 7 out of the 17 plus games that the Packers have had over the last 2 years. And when you're, a big contract guy, that is a problem. In 66 career possible regular season games for the Packers, Jair Alexander has only played in 34 out of those. So that's going to be a problem, I think, at any position, not just cornerback, but we'd even say quarterback. If you signed a quarterback to a big contract and he had only played 34 out of 66 possible games for the franchise, it's going to be an issue. However, when Jair Alexander is a healthy football player, he's proven himself to be one of the best in the league. Every time that he started 13 games or more in the league, he has had double-digit passes defensed. And then, of course, there was the season he had in 2022, the year when he got that extension where he had 5 interceptions, went to a Pro Bowl, his first Pro Bowl, and he's been to 2 of them. So he's a high-quality cornerback in this league. Now it's left to see what teams in this league are going to take that leap and chance, because you are taking a chance with the guy that has, an injury history like he does. So going to be interesting to see where he winds up. A lot of folks think he has Philadelphia Eagles written all over him. I'm not sure about that, though. I think the Eagles like their situation in the secondary. Everyone watched how they played last year. They let Darius Slay move on. He's now a Pittsburgh Steeler. And I don't know how folks would feel about a Jair Alexander coming in if you let Darius Slay go, who's obviously a top corner in this league, aging, though he's probably on the back end of his career. Not probably, he is on the back end of his career, as great as he is, but doesn't have that injury history. A guy that's by and large a lot more available to the team than a Jair Alexander. So is Jair Alexander coming to your team? So my question to you guys out there on this is, you have a favorite team. Would you like to see Jair Alexander come and play for your favorite football team? Drop that answer for me down in the comments section. I'd love to hear from you guys. Would you want to see the number 23 from the Packers wearing number 23 for your team? I would love to hear from you guys on that. And those are the biggest things. We're in the NFL offseason, college offseason, so not a whole lot of news out there for defensive backs, but that is a big one. And, that's it. That's how that thing folds. Probably by the next time I get on here to do an Indy Drills podcast, Jair Alexander will be a member of another team, and we'll, get to talk about that. So that's it for us on current news. Moving into my first subtopic here, and this is a good time of year to do this as we're into summer and guys are preparing for their, upcoming season, whether that's high school, college, pro. The biggest thing is, coach, why am I not starting? This is probably for my younger group, high school guys and your early college guys, but we do need to talk about this. And it's good to get this kind of information while you're a player. When I began coaching, there were so many things that I had learned while coaching that I wish I knew as a player. And one of those biggest things is a coach's mindset as it pertains to how guys get playing time, how guys move up and down on the depth chart, and things of that nature. It would have been nice to have had those things in my head when I was a player. But that's not how life works, all right? You play, then you coach, and that's just the way that it is. However, if you're a player, you can get that knowledge when you really kind of pay attention to, what's going on with a coach, or you're watching the Indy Drills podcast and I'm laying this stuff out for you that you really, really do need to pay attention to. There's a way that guys carry themselves when they are practicing, they're in meetings and things of that nature, that really you need to be more onto the details of that. You really do need to understand what impression you're giving off to a coach. All right, but first, let me put you in the coach's shoes. Yes, coaches are in their room with their unit in control, by and large. All right, they are in control of their room. So who gets the practice reps, who gets the playing time, and how the depth chart lines up. So when you're a player and looking at that, you feel like that coach has just the ultimate authority on everything. That's not entirely how that works. Your position coach has to answer to somebody. And in most cases, if he's not the coordinator, he has to answer to the coordinator. And also he needs to answer to a head coach. So that means there's people above him asking him questions and demanding certain things from him. So the same way that coach is demanding certain things from you, whether that's film study time, whether that's to be better at certain drills, whether that's to understand the defense better, the things that he's demanding from you out on the field, he is also getting demands asked of him from a coordinator, from a head coach. So he's answering to somebody. And whatever amount of pressure he feels coming down on him from these guys that are over him, he's going to pretty much transfer that to you. So there is that thought that you have as a player, like this guy's the end all be all. He's not the end all be all. He's answering to someone else. If you ever had a chance to put on a headset and listen to the communication during a game, if you were a player, but hear what's going on sometimes between coaches, you would understand that. There are times when a coordinator or a head coach will get on there and ask your position coach, what the hell is he doing out there? Why isn't this guy ready? And so on and so forth. And when you're a coach, you're not trying to hear that, okay? You're not trying to feel that kind of pressure during a game, because your job is on the line. All right. I'm assuming that your coach enjoys coaching where he's coaching and he'd like to continue doing it. And he's going to do what he needs to do to keep that job and continue working there. And if putting you out on the field jeopardizes that, guess what he's not going to do? He's not putting you out on the field. So let's talk about what it is that you are doing that's probably keeping you from starting. Assuming that you have the physical abilities to be out there in the first place. And that's not always the case. Sometimes, guys go out for high school football and they have zero knowledge about the game. They're just, trying to go out there and be on the football team, or they're, maybe delusional about their physical abilities. But assuming you have the physical abilities to be out there, here's some things that you might want to pay attention to. A, how are you in meetings? Are you falling asleep in meetings? When your coach asks you a question in a meeting, do you have an answer? Do you ask questions? Do you seem interested? All right. I know how it is. You're young. And meetings are not always fun, but they're a part of this whole process. Sitting down in a chair and listening to someone talk, especially an adult, because when you're a teenager, you're kind of programmed to turn your mind off when an adult is talking. That's just the way that they are. I'm asking you not to do that. All right. Leave being a teenager out in the hallway when you go into those meetings. You need to show the coach your eyes. You need to show interest. One of the biggest ways to show interest is to ask questions. Maybe sometimes you ask a question and you already know the answer. You're doing it for the benefit of the room. Don't just bombard the coach with a bunch of questions and you slow down the meeting, but do ask questions that shows that you're engaged, that you're paying attention. And the other part is, don't just pretend to be paying attention. Pay attention. Take notes in these meetings. Don't just take notes. Review the notes. All of this stuff makes a great impression on your coach. All right. This shows him that you're involved, you're trying, and you are trying to help relieve some of the pressure that coach might be feeling from his coordinator, from his head coach, and he can have some trust in you now. I know I've got a player that's locked in, that's engaged, that's going to know what he's doing out there. Because I'm going to tell you this, assuming that everyone again, has reasonable physical abilities to be out on that field, coaches are going to gravitate more towards guys who know what they're doing when they're out on the field. It matters not if you are a 4.3, 4.4 guy and you bench press the world and you've got a tremendous vertical jump and elite quickness if you don't know where you're supposed to be in the defenses. All of those physical abilities are of zero help to the team, to the coach, if you don't know where to be. So by nature, coaches are just going to gravitate more towards guys who understand the defense, understand what the offense is doing, and get to where they need to be on a consistent basis in the game. All right, let's also talk about consistent basis, because guys will have physical abilities and they know it, and they'll go and occasionally pop out and make a great play, a one-handed interception, a pick six, do something amazing out there, a tremendous pass breakup. They'll see that, and in their mind, they'll trick themselves and say, oh, this is the player that I am. Well, that's the player that you could be. That's the player that you were on that one play and that one time in practice. But the other 7 or 8 plays that you were in, you were up and down. You were in the wrong spot. You got beat because you fell asleep, or you even physically got beat because, you just didn't turn it on that play. In your mind, you're saying, I'm the guy who made that one-hand interception. I should be out on the field. In your coach's mind, then you're a little bit more like the guy that was in for those 7 or 8 plays and either didn't do anything or made a couple mistakes, and maybe the offense didn't see it, but your coach saw it. He saw you beat by 4 or 5 steps when the ball was thrown to the other side of the field, and that's scaring the hell out of them. Coaches go into games and they're nervous, right? By and large, they're nervous. Unless you have one of these major squads that are, full of seniors or guys that are very experienced and they're coming back from last year, and you have a whole bunch of data on how they typically play in a game. The more guys you have in there that are new, the more nervous you are. You go into the game. I know for me personally, I was more nervous in games where I went to coach than any of the games that I went in to play. Now, mind you, I played in front of some big crowds, played in some major bowl games, played in the Sugar Bowl in front of 90-something thousand people, played in the Orange Bowl in front of 80-something thousand people, played in the Florida State versus Miami rivalry game that's all on TV. They hyped it the whole week, and you go and you're out there on that field. For the common person out there, you think that would be a real nerve-wracking situation. That did not come close to any of the top 5-6 times that I went to coach games that were high school and even youth football, because you're not in control of what's going to happen out there. You're basically trusting players that you're putting out on the field to do their job. And the only data your coach has on that is how you behaved in meetings, what you did in walkthroughs, all right? Were you in the right spot? Did you seemingly know what to do? And then what you did in practices, whether that was 7-on-7 or team, or how do you even look in your Indy drills? If you're just kind of going through the motions, you can't show any energy, you don't show any general interest in trying to improve daily, all of that stuff is being evaluated by your coach. Another thing too is if he's asking you to watch film and study an opponent because he knows through experience that that's going to make you a better player, that's going to make the whole secondary better, and that's going to give us a chance to play and make plays and win a game on Friday or Saturday night. If he's asking you to do that, and now with Huddle, they can see who logs in, who watches how many hours, and you're just not doing it, that's a stain in his brain about you. You think that's no big deal. Watch film, don't watch film. Come to practice, I'm kind of where I need to be. If you're trying to win a job, if you're trying to beat another guy out, and that guy's watching film and you're not going to beat that guy out. You might be a step faster than him. You might be a little bit stronger than him. You're not going to beat that guy out because that guy has earned the coach's trust by doing what it is the coach asked him to do. He asked him to watch film, watch about 5, 6, 7, 8 hours of film each week. He's doing it, and you watched 30 minutes, an hour. Maybe you didn't log in. Guy has a step on you. Now he's faster than you and he's stronger than you, even though he really isn't. And when you're young, it's hard for you to understand this. And so you think the coach has something personal against you. Why? Why would he have something personal against you? That coach wants a team and a room full of guys that can play, that can go out there and make plays. That's what he wants. Why would he have something personal against you? It's you. For you guys that now we have this transfer portal era in college football where you could just jump in that thing whenever you want. Or you think the coach has got something personal against you. Oh, he doesn't want to start you. What would be the reason? You make these things up in your head and you go jump in a portal. And guess what happens to a lot of guys that I've seen that go jump in a portal for these types of reasons? They go to the next place and they have those same problems. And now they're in the portal again. More and more I'm seeing guys come out that have played at 2, 3, 4 schools. It can't be all of the coaches at the 3 or 4 schools. At some point, it was you. If you're in your 3rd or 4th school, you've transferred 2, 3 times, it's not the coaches anymore. It's you. You didn't watch the film. You didn't know where to go in the walkthroughs. You didn't pay attention in the meetings. You didn't take the notes. You didn't watch the film. You weren't on point in practice. You didn't show the energy you needed to. You weren't committed to improving your techniques and so on and so forth. So it's you. So if the question is, Coach, why am I not starting? Let's start going through all of the things that I just talked about. Are you watching film? Are you taking notes? Do you understand the defense fully? And by fully, I mean, do you know not only what you're supposed to do, but what the guys around you are supposed to do? That's fully understanding the defense. The minimum is that you know what to do. All right, that's the minimum just to get on the field. But do you understand what the free safety is supposed to do when you're the cornerback? And do you know what the weak side linebacker is supposed to do on your side? Do you at least know that? It'd be great if you knew what the whole defense needed to do, but I might be asking for too much. But do you know what the guys around you are supposed to do? Do you fully understand that? Do you understand the offense? They got guys that are trying to play right now, and you might be one of those. That if the coach just randomly asked you in a meeting to go up there and draw an offensive formation, you would not know how to do that. If he went up there and told you to, hey, show me doubles formation, show me trips with the tight end, show me an empty formation, you might struggle with that. And if he randomly asks you to do that, okay, it's a rainy day, we can't practice, so now you've got more meeting time, and now your coach gets to do stuff like randomly call a guy up and ask them to draw something. Draw up an offense, and you can't do that, you've left a stain in your coach's brain about you. So guys, you need to check in on that. Go through that checklist of the things that I talked about here and ask yourself honestly, how good are you at those things that I just talked about? And if the answer is, I'm really not on point, then you don't need to ask why you're not starting. If there are other guys in the room that are better than you at those things, you have a few weeks here to get better at that. Better double down. You better get better at those things ASAP. All right? Because if you think you're 4'4" and you're 6 feet and that's just going to cancel out everything, you're wrong. Coaches gravitate towards guys who know what they're doing out on the field. Take this from me. Former player, turned coach, now trainer, who's been doing this for a long time. Take those words and run with them. All right, time for the mailbag. I always enjoy this part of it. Love questions, love feedback. So, guys, have at it. There's a comment section if you're watching this on YouTube, and there is one if you're checking this out on Anchor from Spotify. So if you have a football secondary coverage question, whether you're a linebacker or anyone in the secondary, etc., drop your question in. Love to answer those. And if I pick your question, if I think it's like that, really would help us out, I might be reading it on the next Indy Drills podcast. So that's the best way to do it. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit it in the comment section down below. If not, you can always email me, cwilson@alleyedsdbcamp.com. Got a good one this week, a common one, especially during this time of year. Colton from Hamburg, Pennsylvania says, I just moved from wide receiver to cornerback this spring. Can you tell me what's the most important thing for me to learn? All right, Colton. A common thing here, guys move around, positions change, and typically this is when they change, either in the spring or, coming out of spring ball into the summer. Colton, I don't know how much time you've spent on the offensive side of the ball as a wide receiver, but if it's been a year or two or even more, you already know the most important thing, and that is how the offense operates. That is going to be a superpower for you, Colton. And I would urge you and anyone else in this same position to lean into that. Don't come over to defense and forget everything about what offense does. You already have a working knowledge of how things are supposed to work over there. And the offense is what attacks the defense. So if you understand what the enemy is doing, and, by and large, that's going to be your enemy now, the place you just came from, you know what goes into the sauce. All right. You understand how the route combinations work. You understand how what the quarterback does ties in with what the wide receivers do. You understand the challenges that the offense, the wide receiver has as he is attacking a DB. Continue to tap into that knowledge so you know a very important piece to the puzzle. Sometimes guys come from offense over to defense and they forget some of those things or they don't use them. Use that knowledge, okay? There's nothing illegal about that. And matter of fact, it's going to, as you move along, make you better than the other DBs who have never touched that offensive side of the ball or didn't spend that much time over there. What really amped me up as a coach and made me better as a DB coach, especially as a defensive coordinator, is the time that I spent on offense, coaching wide receivers, and being an offensive coordinator. Got a chance to understand all of the challenges and all of the tips and tricks and things that you've got to do to fool the defense. When I took that knowledge and went back over to defense, I was so much better of a coach. The same thing's going to happen to you as a player. But you already have that knowledge. So I want you to tap into that. Now, the next thing that you need to know is the techniques. I'm going to assume here that you have a working knowledge of coverages because you've been attacking them for however long. Yes, you do need to know the coverages, but I'm just going to assume that you have a knowledge of that. Double down on that. Get a full understanding of it. So understand what you need to do in cover 1, what your leverage needs to be. Understand where you need to be in coverages 2, 3, 4, cover 6, and things of those nature. Whatever it is that your team is running, make sure you get an understanding of that. That you definitely need to do. But the part that you probably have the least amount of knowledge on is the techniques. So in this short space of amount of time leading into your season, if you want to get out on the field and be a starter and on top of that, be a playmaker that helps the team wins games, really understand the techniques. So as your coach is explaining them, really listen to all of the little details and ask questions because time is short. The summer will go by quick. Understand the press techniques, understand your alignments, understand, how you're supposed to backpedal and open your hips. That's probably going to be the biggest adjustment for you is the techniques. The movements at DB are different than they are at wide receiver. Wide receiver involves a lot more natural moves, running straight, cutting, things you've been doing either in football or any other sport that you've been playing for quite some time. All right. DB involves a whole lot of going backwards. Reaction is a big part of what you're doing at DB. So make sure, Colton, that you understand techniques. Dive into that. And it's a lot of the little details. Our hand placement, how you're aligned, where your eyes need to be. Double down on that. And you will see the biggest improvement in how you play and give yourself a chance to be out on that field making plays when this season starts. You take your knowledge of how the offense works and attacks the defense and your knowledge of the coverages that you guys are going to be running, and you combine that with really rapid advancement in understanding and executing the techniques, and you could end up being a really big time playmaker when this season comes around. All right, Colt. So I hope that helps you out. For the rest of you guys out there, once again, if you have questions about secondary play, coverages, or anything of that nature, go ahead and drop it down in the comment section if you're watching on YouTube, or you could drop it in the comment section on Anchor, on Spotify, or if your streaming device that you're listening to this on allows you to do that, please go ahead and do so. And if none of that's available to you, send me an email to cwilson@alliesdbcamp.com with your question. Fully appreciate that. All right, moving along to our next topic. These are 3 things. There are a lot of things that you've got to do at defensive back, but these are 3 low-key things that every defensive back must be able to do to excel, and we're going to talk about that right now. And when I say low-key, these are things that not a lot of guys think about when they think about defensive backs, whether you actually play the position or you're a fan watching defensive backs. These things don't really come into your mind, but there's really in the background really huge things that contribute to how you are playing out on the field. And so with that being the case, you've got to pay some attention to these things and really try to dominate in these low key areas that people from the outside looking in don't really recognize or realize, but understand that these are elements that are a part of pretty much all great DBs, past or present. They have these things as a part of them. And if you're lacking in any or, all or many of these areas out of the three, then it's in your best interest to start doing some work there to help yourself become a better player, along with all of the weightlifting and running that you're going to be doing this off season. You need to develop in these areas right here. One of those areas is you need to have a short memory. All right. So this is basically me talking to you about confidence. Have you ever been around a player that maybe in your mind he doesn't seem to be that good, but you can't convince him of that? He thinks he's a great player. There's a saying that goes, fake it till you make it. And sometimes that's what you need to be as a defensive back, especially if you're just starting out. You're a young guy. You got to fake it till you make it. And why do I say that? Listen, if you're a guy going to camps or you're doing a lot of one-on-ones and that kind of stuff, you're going to get beat more often than you're going to win. It's like a batter in baseball. They go up to that plate, and even if they're good, they're only going to get a hit 3 out of the 10 times that they come up to play. So that means 7 times they're going to fail. They can't let those 7 times that they've failed dominate their thought process, because they won't be able to get to those 3 times out of the 10 where they get hits. And if you're hitting the ball and getting base hits 3 times out of 10, you're good in baseball. Same thing when you're playing DB. All right. You're going to lose more times than not in one-on-ones if you're going against any type of decent receivers. I'm not talking to you going against guys that you should dominate. That doesn't really help you for times when you're going to be playing in real games. If you're going against real receivers and you've got real competition out there, you're going to lose more times than not. You got to have a short memory. You can't take the times that you got beat, even if it was beat deep for a 60, 70-yard touchdown. You can't let dominate your mind for the next rep. Once that rep is over, it's over. You got beat for a 70-yard touchdown. Cool. I tell guys this all the time. Getting beat on a big play like that has its blessings wrapped up in it. What now happens is the offense thinks it's sweet. They think that's a place to go. All right. And so now, rather than the first couple times, the offense went your way, you were around the ball, you got the ball, knocked down, whatever, and the quarterback thinks, I'm not going to really be able to get much going to that side of the field today, and he just starts focusing elsewhere. And now for the rest of the game, you're out there, it's a yawner, right? They're not throwing the ball your way. Sometimes getting beat for that big play can be a blessing, because now that quarterback and the offense thinks they can go back over there again. I mean, why not? All right. They went over there and they cashed the check. They went to your side of the field and they cashed the check. Well, what does the offense want to do? They want to keep cashing those checks. They want to keep getting yards. They want to keep making plays. They want to keep getting touchdowns. So now they're going to keep coming over there to your side. And what do we want as DBs more than anything else? Opportunities to make plays. So yes, you got beat for a touchdown or a big play, whatever the case may be. If you just rinse that out of your head and get back on task and just be about your technique and what you need to do on the next play and the next play coming after that, when the offense thinks that they can come back over here and cash a check, you get a chance to be the bank and deny the cashing of that check. You get a chance to put your hands on the football, whether it's a pass breakup or it's an interception. You're going to get more opportunities now. Are you going to be prepared for them mentally? If you are all caught up on the play in which you messed up and you've got that dominating in your mind, you can't let it go. You can't get back and focus on your execution and your technique and knowing where to be and what to do. Well, they're going to cash another check over there. And then that's like compound interest. It'll just start building on itself. They cash 2 checks over there. They're going there again. If you're mentally not right, they're going to cash a third. And then now you become a duck. You become a sitting target over there. The best thing you could do when you give up that big play is rinse that out, have a short memory, and be back on it. So that's the first low-key thing you need to do. Have a short memory. 100%. That's what you need to be about. You're not going to dwell on, the losses that you have. The next one ties into that a little bit. That is, have a competitive spirit. Sometimes guys are, they do well in training. They go to all the trainings and all that, and they're, physically fit. And once again, I will say this, guys think that because they're strong and they're fast, that's everything. It's not. It's only a part of the equation. You also need to have a competitive spirit. You need to line up and realize every time you line up in a 7-on-7 event, a camp, or a game, it is a competitive situation and you're trying to dominate the competition in front of you. You really have to adopt that mindset. Really dive into that. Every time you line up, it's a competition. I don't want this guy in front of me to win not one rep today. And if he won a rep, I'm going to fix it on the next rep. He's not winning the next one. You have to have such a competitor's mindset at DB to excel at it. Great confidence, but also be ultra competitive. It's not okay that a guy caught a pass. Will it happen? Yes. It's not okay, though. I'm not trying to let you catch a couple more. Be competitive. You can't just be, oh, shucks out there. All right, whatever. You've got to go hard each and every play. If you're not a competitor, here's what happens if you're not a competitor. You're out there for 20 snaps and, one play you're really out there doing your thing. And then the next couple of plays, you're like, all right, whatever. No, that can never be the mindset. You're out there for 20 plays. You're trying to dominate for 20 plays. You're going to be on point. You're going to have your technique. You're going to know what to do because you don't want that guy to win any of these reps today. You're not trying to let him win at anything. Absolutely zero. You're not winning today. That has to be your mindset. If you need to become an actor and put yourself in a role mentally, that's where it needs to be. We are dominating everything that's happening out here today, every time. So if I'm in a 7-on-7 tournament and we've got round robin play, which could be 3, 4, 5 games on a Friday, and then Saturday it's the finals. Every single game, every single rep of every one of those tournament games, even if it's just pool play where it's, not going to kill you if you lose, you've got to dominate and all that. Forget about that. It's pool play. You got to send a message to the guy in front of you. You got to send a message to your teammates. And then you got to send a message to yourself that you're like that. So you can't fall asleep and I'm going to just not be a competitor here. You know what? I've got back-to-back pass breakups. I'm just not going to be a competitor on this one. Then a kid takes you deep touchdown. The 2 pass breakups you just had were ruled. They've just been nullified. First down, you got a pass breakup. Second down, you got a pass breakup. But on third down, they scored a touchdown. The end result of all of that was they scored a touchdown. So what about those 2 pass breakups on first and second down? You decided on third down, you were satisfied with what you did on first and second down. So you just decided, I don't want to be a competitor on third down, and you got bombed, touchdown. The end result of that drive for the offense and your opponent, touchdown. 6, 7 points, whatever they're issuing out for a touchdown. And I say that because, 7-on-7 tournaments have different scoring sometimes. You have to be just an elite, obsessed competitor every time you line up. That's in practice, that's in one-on-ones, that's in a camp, that's in 7-on-7, definitely in a game. Your mindset is, I'm not letting you win every time you line up. If you can't do that, stay to the side till you develop that. Or, coaches will help you get off to that side. You keep giving up enough, you fail as a competitor, they'll help you with getting off to the side and watching things. But if you don't want to get it to that point, you develop a competitor's mindset. And one of the best ways for you to do that is to do it just about in everything. Sometimes actors, when they're going to take the good ones, when they're going to take on a role, they go into that character role. So they're not going to start filming for, 6 months. All right. Or filming is 3 months away from now. But for that entire 6 or 3 months leading up to when they're filming, they are pretending they are that character. So I'm going to need you as a player to do that. Become that character that's competitive. So I don't care if you're playing cards with friends, you're playing a video game, you're racing someone in the street, whatever little games you're playing, you're a competitor. You're in a classroom and you like compete in the classroom. I want the best grade. I want to turn in the best report. I'm going to do the best on this quiz. If you make that a part of your daily life cycle, it'll be easy to translate that to the field. Be a competitor at all times. The best players out there, if you think about some of the best DBs, Charles Woodson, Darrelle Revis, Deion Sanders, Champ Bailey, all these guys that you guys like to talk about, think about what kind of competitors they were. Tell me how many times you think you saw them taking off a play. Doesn't happen. So make yourself a full-time competitor. The last low-key thing, and you have to know this was coming, if you have paid attention to anything I've done on this channel or been listening to me for a while, that is have an IQ. I'm going to talk about this again. As a casual observer of the game, as a fan watching the game, we do so much on jumping into a guy's physical characteristics, and that's in all sports. All sports we do this. Shaq was so big, or Michael Jordan had such a great vertical leap, or LeBron is just such a tremendous athlete. Deion Sanders was so fast. This guy can really jump high. We tend to put our focus on that because that's just the obvious thing that we can see. I'm here to tell you, I'd be hard-pressed to think about and find any kind of Hall of Fame defensive back or any of the guys that we call great that didn't have tremendous IQs. Let's take the guy that was the best athlete probably to ever play the cornerback position, and that is Deion Sanders. You young guys know him as Coach Prime. If you haven't had a chance to go back and look up what he did in the past, do that. He was not just talking. 4'2", 40 guy, 3-sport athlete in high school, ran track in college, all the stories. Played a baseball game while at Florida State, jumped the fence, went over to the track and ran the 4x100. All those stories. You think that's just all that it was about for him. But I'm here to tell you that back in the day when he was playing, portable DVD players were a new thing. All right. Not everyone had them. Deion Sanders was perhaps one of the first guys that I'd heard about to ever carry around a portable DVD player and watch game film on the plane as they were going to their away games to go play games. He would have it in the locker room pregame as they were preparing to get a little bit of extra film study in so he can go play. Yeah, the guy that ran 4'2", that probably had a 40-something inch vertical leap, and all the athleticism that you saw him display when he was out on the field, still felt the need, despite he having all those super great physical characteristics, to go study extra to get an edge on the opponent. So if that guy with all those characteristics physically needed to do that to have an edge, what do you think you need to do? You think you get to skimp on any of that stuff? You think you get to skimp on any of the IQ stuff? If that guy needed to do that, put that in your pipe and smoke it, put it in your head and get it there. You need an IQ to be great. You can't be a dumb football player. If you've gotten anything out of this podcast episode today, is that you cannot be an average intelligence football player. Maybe you're a guy that doesn't like to study, but if you love football, you better study or you're just never going to reach your full potential. And I don't want that for you. All right. If you're putting your time and effort in, you're lifting all the weights, you're running in that sun, you're running those hills, you're doing all that great stuff. Let's do it to be great when the season comes around. And that means football IQ. Perhaps you think watching film is boring. Get out of that mode. Figure out ways to make that fun for you. All right. Invent ways to make that fun for you because you're going to need it. You're going to need to study. You're going to need to understand what your opponent is doing to you. You're going to need to study your playbook so you know what to do when you're out there. You're going to need to study your playbook to know what everyone else is doing out there so you don't get tricked out on the field. Study, study, study. All right. So those are the three things. Have a short memory. Be an ultimate competitor and have an IQ. If you do those three things, along with all of the other stuff that the rest of the team and the rest of the country is doing to prepare for their season, you will be an improved player. You know how you can really improve? Grab yourself a copy of this book right here, 101 DB Tips, available in soft cover or ebook edition. Get this, everything that you need to know two-play defensive back is in there. If you read a tip a day, there's no chance that you won't be a really great player, much better in 2025 than you were in 2024, or if you're really trying to be elite. All right. This might not be for you. You might not want to be this good. But if you really, really want to be good, all right, and you're not afraid of being great, you get this book and you also join me in the All Eyes DB Camp members area. Over 300 posts at this point on all types of things. Coverages are explained in there. Technique is broken down. There's strategies on defeating the offense. There's lives in there. There's quizzes. There's all types of great information in there. And it's a whole community where guys are contributing and we're talking to each other in there. Really great for players. Also really, really great for coaches. If you're coaching, you need to be in there with all the rest of us. All right. Don't let people get the jump on you. They're getting this information and you're not getting it if you're not in the All Eyes DB Camp members area. So you need to do that ASAP and in a hurry. You'll love it in there. You'll love it in there. So I'll have links to both of these things down in the description below. The book and the members area. If you're there, 2025 is going to be so great for you. I can't stress that enough. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Again, if you did, give this video a like, share it with your friends. Don't hog all the information. And if you're not yet subscribed to the All Eyes DB Camp channel on YouTube, go ahead and do that now. Hit the bell so you're notified the next time I put out a great Indy Drills episode like this one. All right, that's it for me. I'm out of here. And as always, All Eyes DB Camp. Consistency breeds results.